Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Rapid Results with Andrew Weiss. We have a wonderful guest today, Nikki Rausch, the sales maven. And in case you don't know who this wonderful Nikki is, she has integrated her 25 plus years of experience selling to such prestigious organizations as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Hewlett Packard, NASA. And she shared with her clients the same approaches that led her to shattering sales records. And in her industry, she's also received multiple top producer awards along the way. She has a business degree from University of Washington. Even though I'm from Oregon, I'll forgive that for the time being. And she has a master's certification in neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP for short. With this, she's built tremendous sales skills that now provide enormous benefits for her clients. Nikki, welcome to the show. Tell us, what is the biggest and best business deal you're most proud of?
Thank you. Hi, Andrew. I'm so excited to be here with you. I have quite a few, I will say, but one in particular was actually closing the deal to NASA. It definitely wasn't my biggest, but it was such an interesting experience to go into a very secure location, go through all the checks and balances to even get into the room to demonstrate the product and ultimately to have them decide to purchase the product that I was selling at the time, which was encrypted wireless audio conferencing equipment. So that was a really fun one.
That is awesome. And so I'm sure, obviously, NASA is very selective about who they work with and how they work with them. And so how competitive was it to get that slot, even just to get in the room? Were they choosing between dozens of companies? Like, tell us more about how you got in the room and how you stood out.
Well, I actually went in, so I worked at the manufacturer level. So I did go in with a dealer that repped our product. And so they were the ones that ultimately got us in the room to go and put the product in front of them and help close the sale. So there was a lot of work on a lot of people's parts to even get there. And yes, everything like that is always competitive. Um, but one of the distinctions is that we had a product that was encrypted, which is obviously important because they didn't want people being able to access their communication. And it was a really small wireless piece of equipment that could sit on a table. And compared to those, I don't know if you remember, this was, way back in the late 1900s and early 2000s. But the audio equipment that used to sit on the conference room table were those big, ugly, pieces of equipment. So ours were these really sexy little sleek microphones that sat on the conference table and you could move them around.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. And I love talking about like the hero's journey. Like, here you are at the top of the mountain. You're like, yes, we did it. We pulled it off. We had the sales skills to sell to NASA. But chances are you didn't come out of the womb knowing how to sell to NASA, at least.
No.
But maybe you did. Who knows? So tell us more about your journey to even get that confidence to close a big sale like that and make those kind of deals happen. Tell us more about that journey.
So my journey is I actually got my first professional sales job out of a college project. And at the time, it was selling technology and working for a company that was in my local area. Um, and it was the first time that I went into a commission type sales position where I could control my income based on what I was able to produce. And at that company, I had a lot of success there. I moved my way up from being, what they called the outbound sales rep, which was the person that was like the dialing for dollars. It was like how many phone calls could you make in a day? How many times could you be told no? All of that. And I worked my way up to becoming their national sales manager before I left that company and then went to the manufacturer level. And at the manufacturer level, that was when I became the road warrior type sales rep. I was the person who was taking 100 flights a year, doing 70 to 80 hotel nights a year and just getting out. And it's about getting the reps, right? Like you get out, you get to meet with different people that have different needs and building relationship and rapport with them quickly is such a crucial way to differentiate yourself because in tech, a lot of times there are competitors, right? In most any industry, there's a ton of competitors. So there's a lot of choices. So it's about building really strong relationships. And during my time at the manufacturer level, that is when I started studying neurolinguistic programming. And if that's a new term to anybody listening, it's essentially the study of communication, but it's learning how to add flexibility to your behavior, to put the other person at ease, to initiate conversation, so that you make it easy for them to want to stay in conversation with you. You make it easy for somebody to want to be revealing to you about how to earn their business. So it was really using my skill set of I love people. I love to hear people's stories. I love to get to know people, and also being strategic in that conversation to find out like what were their criteria? How could we show that our product or service could meet that criteria, and then what would it take to earn that business? So it was a great experience.
No, I love that, and I like how you brush off saying, "Oh yeah, I did dialing for dollars. I heard hundreds of no's, but I still went anyway." And so I'm curious, like, how did you build that mindset, that tenacity to be able to do those dialing for dollars, to get rejected, but of course still hear those yeses? Like, how do you help cultivate that? Because I know a lot of people out there that the phrase is either sell or be sold. And a lot of people, they hear a few rejections, like, oh, maybe sales isn't for me. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. So tell us more how you're able to keep going.
Well, I will say it could be that I had a different take on that idea of no, and I'll tell you, I'll wrap this around a story that years ago, a colleague of mine was applying for a sales job, and she didn't really have a ton of sales experience, and so she had reached out to me and asked me, how to like ask the right questions in the interview process and all of that. And as I was just giving her some advice, she said, Nikki, you know what makes you really good at sales? And I love a compliment. So I was like, what? What do you think makes me really good at sales? And she said, what makes you really good at sales is you're so good at rejection. And I was like, wait, what? Like it literally almost stopped me in my tracks. Like it caught my breath. I was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Like who's rejecting me? And she's like, oh, when people say no. And I go, oh, I don't actually think of no as a rejection. I think of it as information. And so, kind of another thing that I often share with my clients is, you can look at a no as rejection, or you can also look at it as if you go out and have a really, wonderful meal at a restaurant, and at the end of your meal, as they're clearing the plates away, the waitress, comes by and says, can I show you our dessert menu? And you say, oh, I couldn't possibly. That was such a good meal, and I'm full, but thank you. Maybe next time. The waitress doesn't go back into the kitchen and be like, "Can you believe that broad? I offered her dessert and she rejected me." Right? It's just information. So I have never really taken no as personal rejection. I've always looked at
Mm.
it as it's just information. Sometimes a no is just a not yet. And it's about building the relationship. And again, at any point when somebody has a need or a want, I want them to feel comfortable enough to come back to me and be like, hey, I wasn't ready when we had that conversation, 2 months ago or 2 years ago. I'm ready now. Let's go.
I love that, and just the mindset of not taking rejections and no's as personal, and just I love that analogy you used with the waitress and offering dessert. It's just like, hey, you still had a good meal. Well, and just to kind of quickly counteract that, like if you are selling your services and they haven't had a meal from you yet, but they just need to buy the meal in the first place, like how would you translate that analogy? Or just keep giving them more complimentary information until they buy, or how would you translate that?
Well, I think the most important thing is when I teach about sales, I teach, sales isn't something you're supposed to do to another person. It's something that you do with
Mhm.
another person. And what I mean by that is if a person doesn't have a want or a need or a problem, you're not there to try to convince them or change their mind. And as a matter of fact, in the society and the way that we show up today, um, we don't really want people to try to change our mind. We don't want people to convince us. And anytime somebody goes into convince mode, as a buyer, we tend to go into like, I'm going to draw a line in the sand here. And
Yeah.
there's not a thing you could say or do that's going to encourage me to cross that line. Like, I'll never give you my hard earned dollars when
Hmm.
somebody goes into convince mode. So, to me, from a sales experience, it's understanding, does the person have a need or a want? Do I have a solution that would meet that need or want? And do I have their permission to even offer it to them?
Mm.
So, the first and most important thing that I'm going to do in a sales conversation with a prospective client is I'm going to ask them a question. And that question is this something that you are in need of? Or is this something you're looking for? Or is this something you'd be open to having a conversation about? And I would do that even if I am communicating with them, in a written form, or if I'm having a live conversation. Because if somebody doesn't have a need or a want, there's so many other people out there that need what it is that I do. And I'm not going to waste my time trying to change somebody's mind or convince them that they need to work with me.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Is just working with people rather than trying to. My wife and I saw Wolf of Wall Street recently, and just like somebody's like, "Sell me this pen," and it's just like, do they even need the pen in the first place?
Yeah.
kind
Yeah. Like,
of thing.
do you have a need for a pen? Because if you don't have a need for a pen, it doesn't matter what price I offer or tell you how great the pen is. You don't need it or you don't want it. Why would you spend money on it?
No, that makes a lot of sense. Let's go into NLP a little bit because I know it's such a fascinating concept, and obviously, people who study NLP, it seems like they do much better at life and getting what they want than others. So tell us a little bit about what are some great NLP techniques that you use to help others and help grow your business?
So there's so many, like we could have like a multi-day conversation
Oh, I
about
bet.
this, but I'll say some of the ones that I think are really important is in NLP, there's this idea of learning how to pace before you lead. And so a lot of times in a sales conversation, people think their job is to show up and um, like be on, right? Like do the like dance, like, and try to again go into this convince mode. And if you go into a sales conversation with somebody and you're not pacing them first, then it's really hard for them to want to go with you. It's kind of like if I walked up to you on the street, Andrew, you don't know me, we've never met before, and I grab your arm and I say, "Come with me." You're probably going to stop in your tracks and be like, "Who are you? And why would I come with you?" But if I come up to you and stand next to you and introduce myself and start a conversation, and then I say, would you be willing to walk over here a few steps with me? You probably would say yes. And that's the idea of pacing. Now, I can go into so much detail, and there's lots of ways to pace somebody before you try to lead them somewhere. So, an example of a pace in a sales conversation is to pay attention, for instance, to somebody's rate of speech. Now, everybody has a rate of speech, and if you look at it like on a spectrum, there's a certain place you might fall. So if we say 0 to 10, 10 being somebody who talks really, really fast, doesn't even take breaths oftentimes before their sentences, they've got a lot to say and it comes out fast, right? Like we've all been in rooms with people who are really fast talkers. And then there's people who are on the other side of the spectrum who really take their time when they're speaking.
Hmm.
Now, wherever you fall on the spectrum, wherever, like, if you assigned yourself a number, you're perfect. Like, you're you. That's awesome. But if you want to make it comfortable for somebody to be in conversation with you, you should pay attention to their rate of speech because it's actually easier to stay in conversation with somebody who has a similar rate of speech to you. If you're somebody who's a really, really fast talker and somebody shows up and they talk like this, you're not going to want to stay in the conversation. You're going to be like, get me out of here. Like, I can't stand it. And
Yeah.
the flip side is true too. Somebody who has a slower rate of speech, somebody who's a fast talker that shows up, they go like, oh, push away. Like, that's coming on too strong. Or this person sounds like a slick talker. Right. And so again, wherever your rate of speech is, That's fine. But can you add flexibility to your behavior? Can you slow down a little bit to be more comfortable in a conversation for the other person, make it more comfortable for them? Or can you speed up a little bit depending on their rate of speech? That's just one example. And it's such an easy thing to do. And you don't even have to do it forever, because what will happen is, let's say I'm a really fast talker and I meet somebody who has a slower rate of speech. If I'm willing to slow down a little bit, usually what happens is they will start to speed up a little bit and we'll find a happy medium, because
Interesting.
it's easy to be in conversation. And think about, if you've ever had this experience where you meet somebody for the first time and you just feel so connected to this person. You're like, I don't know where you've been all my life, but I just feel like we should have been friends forever.
Hmm.
And we probably will be friends forever now that we've met, right? And those conversations, they go really smooth. And and again, flip side of that, you meet somebody who's really different than you. Being in a conversation with them for 10 minutes makes you feel like, I need a nap after being in that conversation, right? But the thing is, if you think of the person who you really enjoy that conversation, chances are there's things about that person that feel very similar to you. Now, here's the thing: we love and like people who are like us.
Hmm.
And the more important thing is, people who are like us, we think those people are smart.
Oh, okay.
Like, be honest. When
Yeah.
you meet somebody who's like you're like, that person, smart,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
You meet somebody who's a lot different than you, and you don't necessarily hold them in that same regard. Sometimes you think, that person is a moron, right? Like, this is the thing. So, if you can show up in a conversation and make it easy for the person to be in conversation with you, they're more likely to stay in the conversation longer. They're more likely to be open to hearing what it is that you have to share. And the third and most critical thing is, they'll be more likely to be revealing to you about how to earn their business. So you've got to pace before you lead.
I love that. And I think, isn't the other phrase for that like called mirroring something? Or
Yeah,
yeah,
matching and mirroring.
yeah,
Yep.
matching and mirroring. Is there a difference between matching and mirroring and pacing and leading? And
Matching and mirroring is a form of pacing. Yep.
gotcha. Okay, very cool. No, I love that. That makes so much more sense, because I know like basic sales is people usually buy from you when they know you, like you, and trust you. And in order to
Yeah.
like you and trust you, it makes sense. Like you want to find the similarities. And I remember like it was like a story about Jimmy Fallon, or Jimmy wanting to host Clint Eastwood on his show, and he didn't have anything in common with him. But then he realized, he's like, oh, my grandma used to knit too, and I saw your grandma knits as well, or something. And just like, and it instantly opened up Clint Eastwood to be like more comfortable in the interview. And so like, even when you think you have nothing in common, just like always looking for the common ground wherever you can, essentially, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, and you can find common ground, like, maybe you wouldn't know if somebody's grandma knitted, right? Like, you wouldn't always know that, but you can usually pick up somebody's rate of speech, or you
Mm.
can usually notice a style that somebody has, Are they somebody who's really expressive? Do they talk a lot with their hands? Do their hands move when they speak? Or are they somebody who sits a little bit more still? That's another way to match and mirror, is somebody who is really expressive with their hands, and when they talk, their hands move. If you're sitting there being really like, you know they might see you as rigid, or they might see you as like, why is this person so straight laced, right? And then on the flip side of it is, if somebody like me, I am a big time hand talker. I try not to do it on podcasts and interviews, because it can be really distracting to somebody who's a high visual learner, who prefers that my hands don't move when I'm speaking, right? So it's finding that middle ground with people and being willing to pay attention. What's their style, and how can I adjust mine to be more comfortable for them to be in conversation? Now, again, this isn't about mimicking anybody. This isn't about being inauthentic either. It's just about adding flexibility.
Yeah.
My all time favorite quote is, "Blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be bent out of shape." And I think what I teach and what I have learned from my many, many years in studying neurolinguistic programming is to add flexibility to my behavior. And the more flexible I am in a conversation with somebody, the more influence you tend to have.
Yeah, it just goes back to survival of the fittest. Like it's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the most adaptable. That's gonna
Oh, I love that.
yeah, it's how the world runs. So I want to transition a little bit. I noticed you had some great blog titles for some of your blog posts you've done over the years, from filling group programs, to preventing ghosting, to preventing buyer's remorse. So let's talk about if you hypothetically like going. Obviously, you've been a coach for a few years now, but if you're speaking to a newbie coach and you're going, and obviously I know this is its own course, its own talk, but how about what are some basics on how you help people fill their group programs essentially?
Well, when it comes to group programs, I will say I take a little bit of a different stance than some people. So, one of the things that somebody who's a new coach starting out, and I think we hear this all the time in the industry, is like, do a group program because it's a great way to maximize your time and your return on investment. And I agree, that's true. However, if you're a new coach starting out and you don't really have an audience yet, it's very hard to fill a group program. It's almost impossible. And you'll spend a lot of time beating your head against the wall. You might get one or two or maybe three people, but filling a group where you want 10 or 15 or 20 or 50 people without having an audience to fill a group program, it's in my opinion, it's a huge waste of your time. It also can be very demoralizing because you start to convince yourself that nobody wants to buy from you, and it's not true. So, my advice to a new coach starting out is whatever you think you want to do in your group program, do it with one on one in a one on one environment with a coaching client. Start to really like get the reps under yourself. Figure out like what are the questions that are coming up when you're working with somebody one on one? Where are the places where they're feeling stuck? Where are the places where when you give them a suggestion and they go off and implement it and they come back and they're like, dang, that was so good. Like, oh my gosh, this is what happened as a result of what you had suggested to me. You got to pay attention to those things because that's the information that you're ultimately going to start promoting to sell for your group program. But you need those reps underneath you first. You need the experience of going through your content, going through your messaging, going through your advice that you're going to give, finding out what are the questions, what are the places that people go like, I don't even know what you mean when you say that, because that gives you some indicator there's still some work to be done. So I'm all for a group program, but you need to have an audience that is ready to take that next step with you. So if you've got a great podcast and you've got some great listenership, that's amazing. That's a great way to fill a group program. But the other thing too is you can start just by guesting on podcasts and you can start, offering something for people to join your email list. And then when they join your email list, you can make an offer to them. And at some point, you will be able to fill up a group program, but trying to do it right off the bat isn't something I recommend.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, and it's very sound advice. I know it's so interesting how people think, oh, it's so easy to enroll clients. All you have to do is make a Facebook post about it, and then your inbox gets filled. But it's just like, well, maybe if you have 1 million followers first or 10,000 followers, but it's a good reminder too. Like, build your audience first. Then once you have your audience built, then you can be better at making offers, making opportunities, and it's much easier than starting from scratch, essentially. So it
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense knowing your priorities.
Yeah, and you need money coming in the door, right? Like, if you are not making money in your business, you have a hobby, you don't have a business.
Yeah.
So selling a one-on-one offer and giving people the opportunity to work with you when they're ready is the perfect way to start to do that, to get cash flow coming into the business, get this experience of working with clients one-on-one, and chances are you do a great job with that person. They're not gonna be a one and done client. They're gonna wanna stick around. They're gonna wanna continue to learn from you. So at some point, you will have that audience built in, ready to go into a group program with you.
Oh, yes, that brings up another good point. So, to tell us, for long-term sustainability as a coach, as a business, how do you keep people coming back and working with you again and again and signing up? Like, what are those some of those methods you use for that?
So I am really focused on client lifetime value. That's a big part of my business, and it's something that I speak often with my clients, and I want them thinking about lifetime value of clients. So there's a couple ways to increase lifetime value with your client. Um, Sometimes it's the first way, and again, this is about somebody who's maybe starting out or somebody who wants to bring some new, like, fresh, clients into their business. I always say, have a what I call a make it easy offer, like something that's such an easy yes for somebody to, like, dip their toe in the water and have paid you a little bit of money. You should have a make it easy offer for people to go, okay, there's really low risk here for me to sign up for whatever this thing is or for me to buy this thing. So you have a make it easy offer, and then as soon as they buy the make it easy offer, there's opportunity to put another offer in front of them, and then another offer, and then another offer, and then another offer. So your make it easy offers are so important. And as a matter of fact, in my own business, I have found that I have an offer that is a $27 offer. Now, $27 offer in my business does not move the needle as for,
Yeah.
it definitely doesn't pay for my team. It just doesn't move the needle in my business. But I have many examples where I can show that somebody bought that first $27 offer, and then they bought the next offer and the next offer and the next offer. And as a matter of fact, I just did this in a presentation recently for a group where I was breaking this down, and I was showing an example of one client in particular who, and this client, this was just from a couple months ago. She bought the $27 offer, and then I put another offer right in front of her, which she immediately took. It was a $90 offer. And then within 7 days, she bought another offer that I put in front of her, which was a $2,800 offer. So it went from being a $27 client to, a $2,800 client in 7 days. Now, that's just the beginning, right? There's more to come. And as a matter of fact, I just had a conversation with her recently, and she's like, I know we're coming up on, an end to this, thing that we're doing together. I want to know what's next.
Wow.
So that is how you increase lifetime value of your clients, because it's always easier to earn repeat business than it is to go out and find a bunch of new clients all the time. So you should have that next offer ready, and you should be thinking about that in your business. What is a next logical offer? Don't wait for your clients to go like, okay, so is this it? Like, you should be the one who's putting those offers in front of them and making it really easy. Now, they won't always pick the offer, but I sell to my list regularly, and I put offers in front of my list regularly. And if you asked me to predict, if you said, Nikki, I will give you $1 million if you can predict who are going to be the buyers of this offer, I would lose that $1 million every time, because I'm always surprised at who takes which offer. But because I don't know how to predict that, I haven't figured that out in my business. What I do is I put offers in front of my people uh, all the time. So I might do a low price offer, a medium price offer, a high price offer, and I'll just continue to rotate through. Now, what will happen is people will either go like, I never want to buy from her, so I'm going to get off this list, or they'll go, well, I don't want that offer, but I'm going to wait to see what the next one is, and they may take the next one and the next one and the next one. And so, using that same example that I gave of the client that within 7 days brought in $2,800 into the business, I have another example where I show somebody same offer, $27, that over the course of 2 years brought in $28,000 in business.
Wow.
One client. So you have to have make it easy offers. Get people in the door, get them comfortable working with you, show them what's possible for them as a result of what you can deliver, and then put an offer in front of them and see what they want next.
I love that. And so for the $2,800 offer, do you like to kind of extend that offer like you do a renewal of the same author, or is it keep expanding? Okay, 2,800 now, 5 grand, 10 grand, 20 grand. Like what does that sequence look like for you for the lifetime value?
Yeah, so it depends on the particular client and what they actually need. So I have a few people that have bought that $2,800 offer that have now moved into like a monthly coaching package with me, which is $1,000 a month.
Mhm.
So that $1,000 a month, again, whether they stay and do it for 3 months or whether they stay and do it. I just had somebody recently cancel after about 18 months. So again, when you look at that, it's, that $2,700 offer or $2,800 offer now has generated another $18,000 in business because that's what they needed. But sometimes somebody will do that and then they'll pop down into my group coaching program, which is $147 a month. So it's really kind of where they are in their business and what do they really need. So I believe you have to stand in integrity and recommend what the client needs, what's going to be the best solution for them, regardless of the price point. So my intention isn't to sell somebody a $27 offer and then move them into a $25,000 coaching package with me, unless that is actually what they need.
I love that. Just going back to like talk to the client, see what they need, customize it accordingly, because obviously you can't sell something to someone they don't want or need. And so it's just,
Well, you shouldn't.
yeah, you shouldn't. Yes. Yeah, you can, but you shouldn't. Yeah. That's a good point too. So that's such a good point as well, as far as just like makes you have an audience built. It makes sales easier, take care of your clients. And let's talk about now, once you get a client in the door, how do you help prevent buyer's remorse? Because I know so many people that buy these programs and they're like, oh, I changed my mind. Actually, I want to refund immediately, even though they haven't started yet, or they get nervous before the first call or after the first call or something. So tell us more about how you prevent that.
So there's a couple things that you can do specifically to prevent buyer's remorse is you make sure that you are making it easy for them to take action on the things that you're doing. So for instance, when somebody joins my group coaching program, I call it the Sales Maven Society. When somebody joins my society, we do a couple things to help them get integrated into the group and start to access the resources that are used. So there's a onboarding sequence of emails that they get that encourage them to take small actions in each email, so that by the end of, and we do that for the first 2 months, that by the end of the first 2 months, they should have an idea of like, oh, I get what's going on here. I see how to use it in my business and how it's going to benefit me. And then that's a good indicator at that point. If they haven't taken any action, they're probably not a good fit for the program and they're going to leave. The other thing that we do is we actually physically mail them something. It's a welcome letter from me, and also it is a guide of, again, some suggestions of things like, here are 3 things to do in week 1 of month 1. Here are 3 things to do in week 2 of month 1. And we have that as a 2-month, like it looks like it's not a calendar, but it looks like kind of a week plan for them, 4 weeks for each month. And then that's again to get them integrated. That's one way to do that, is to have this onboarding sequence that makes it easy for them to take these small steps. Because sometimes really people just need to take one step in order for them to know what, like, oh, I get it. So I can now take the next step and the next step. But if they never take that first step, they will have buyer's remorse of working with you.
No,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry, as you're still going, but please keep going. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Depending on if you're working one-on-one with clients, the other way that I think about this is I often, at the end of a session, I ask my clients to share what were your biggest takeaways from today's session. And the reason that I ask them to do that is because now they get to hear in their own voice and they get to hear it in their own ears, the value of what they got out of that session. And if you're not doing that piece in your coaching business, I would recommend that you instill it, because it will make a difference to your clients. It's also really phenomenal feedback for you as the coach. What are the things that stand out to them? And then you can take that information and maybe create a whole course around, like, oh my gosh, this is the thing that people constantly say is their biggest takeaway. Or you could write an article about it. Like, it gives you a lot of great information. But from a client's perspective, it helps reinforce for them the value of what they're doing with you.
Well, I love that. Small actions leading to big results, and just making it as simple as possible for them to get started and keep going. And show them, hey, I do actually I know what I'm talking about. Just this is all you got to do, and just kind of keep leading them along. So it sounds like you have a very high, lifetime value rate. Like a large percentage of people stay for a few months at a time, and it sounds like more than a year. And how'd you come up with the mailing idea? Like, do you give them some candy in the mail too, or is it just and you pay for the shipping yourself as well?
I don't send candy. I just
Oh,
send this letter with this other, it's colored piece of paper, but like I said, with this like 2-month plan on it for them, broken down
yeah.
by the week. And yeah, we always stand on the shoulders of giants. So I got that idea from another woman who has a similar type coaching program, and we were sharing ideas of ways that, what's working in our business. And she talked about doing a mailer that when somebody joins, she sends them a welcome and then something to encourage them. And I was like, oh, I could do that. So I always think you stand on the shoulders of giants, people who are doing things that are working that you haven't implemented yet. Like, look for ways to bring those ideas into your own business and take action.
No, I love that, and I'm just trying to think, like, for all the clients you onboard all the time, like, surely you figured out a way to systemize this. Like, is there a third party that helps do things for you, or how have you figured out how to systemize this process of sending out mailers to all your clients?
So I have a team that supports me on this. So we do have a system where there's a notification that goes to my team member that when somebody new joins the group, that it indicates, and she looks at this list twice a month and sends the mailer. So,
So she's the one who goes to the post office and sends it
yep,
out. Oh, that's so
yep.
cool. How fun. And another blog title I liked that I saw from yours was why you should increase prices during a recession. And I know election year is 2024. We're recording this interview. It's a leap year, election year. 49ers are playing the Chiefs again. It's going to be a crazy year. Um,
Go Niners.
So tell us, with all the chaos going on and all the inflation rising at record highs, why should you increase prices?
Well, it helps when you increase your pricing. One of the things that happens is it sends a message that you're still in it, that you are taking your business serious, and it helps get rid of what I call the tire kickers, the people who are like on the cusp but aren't willing to pay your price. We want to remove them as fast as possible so that you don't spend any time or energy trying to give them what it is that they need or want, because they're actually not going to pay you money. So sometimes when you raise prices, what happens is people go like, oh, this is serious. Like this person's serious in their business and they must be getting serious results. So there are times to lean into a price increase for sure. Also, it's great for your mindset because you start to see the people that you work with. Oftentimes, the more money that you charge for things, the more serious people take what it is that they're getting from you. They're more likely to do something with it. I would say implementers get results. I find that the higher my prices go, the more likely people are to implement the things that I teach. And when my clients implement, they do get results and they come back and they're like, dang, that worked really great. If somebody's paying me a little bit of money, it's easy for them to go like, I may do it or I may not. So I'm always looking for ways to encourage people to implement. I know we're talking about raising pricing, but I always look for ways to make it easy for people to implement. So just to give you an example of this, I mentioned this $27 offer. When somebody buys a $27 offer from me, they don't get it for life. They get it for 30 days.
Hmm.
Because if they're not willing to go through it and do something with it in 30 days, they lose it. And
Mm.
I'm serious about that because not because I'm trying to get them to pay me another $27 next year. That's not the intent. The intent is that if they'll go through it, it will change the way they do something. And by changing the way they do something, they will see results in their business. And when they see results in their business, it will elevate their own opinion of themselves. It'll also elevate my credibility with them. and they're more likely to feel comfortable then paying that next fee for whatever that next thing is. So somebody going from paying me a $27 offer to now looking at a strategy session with me and paying me $795. If they're like, if I got that from a $27 offer, I can't imagine what I would get from, spending 50 minutes with Nikki and spending $800. And the fact of the matter is they'll get a lot.
No, 100%. And I know a lot of people, it's interesting, like the mindset around pricing, because, it goes back to like the Mercedes-Benz example, like you're probably gonna have a better experience that I know Kia's working on improving your brand, but Kia used to be like, we're cheap car, we know it, but but you get what you pay for kind of thing.
Yeah.
So being able to like brand yourself accordingly. And when it comes to raising prices, like, do you double your prices? Do you raise it by like 10% every 6 months? Like, how do you determine when and how much to raise your prices by?
So I wouldn't have like a hard and fast rule about that. Usually with my clients that are service-based business, the thing that I think is important to pay attention to is if when somebody buys something from you, if you feel a little bit like, "Oh, now I have to deliver. It's time to raise your price."
Yeah.
Because when somebody buys something from you, there should be a little bit of this like, "Ooh, I better sit up straight here. Like, I need to deliver now. Like, I really need to show up." And I think your pricing should reflect that. So that's usually an indicator that if you're feeling like, "Oh, people are just paying this little amount for this thing that I'm doing," you probably need to raise your price, because then when somebody pays it, you're gonna be like, "Oh, I'm gonna show up and be my best self here and really deliver on it." So that could be in increments, of a 10% increase or a $100 increase. I had a coach years ago who wanted me to set my price that felt so out of bounds for me as to what she wanted me to charge for some private coaching. And I was like, I just can't do it. And she was like, okay, then I'm going to say to you that you can sell 5 of them at this price. And as soon as you hit 5, you need to agree to what that increase is going to be. And then when you sell another 5, there's got to be another increase until you get to the point where we both know it's somewhat in a realistic price point. And so I think I sold 3 and I was like, "Dang, this is a lot of value that people are getting," and I raised my price. And then I probably sold 1 or 2 more, and then I really raised the price. So sometimes it's just what's the right thing for you in your market? What will people pay? You need to know that too. Because, you can say I have a $10,000 offer, and if people are like, I would never pay $10,000 for that. You're either in the wrong group, in the wrong room, you need to be talking to different people, or you need to be realistic. Like, that's not a realistic price. But there are times where people charge $10,000 for something that people would happily pay $20,000 for.
Wow. Yeah, that's such a good point. Like, it's all perspective and how you're driving
Mhm.
the value, and just like, if you can't stop selling at 10 grand, maybe it's time to up to 12 grand or something like that. It's because and I like that phrase you said too. Like, if you feel like it's a disappointed sigh, like, oh crap, I have to do work now, then it's probably time to raise the price. So I like that analogy as well. And no, this has been wonderful. And as we come to the end here, I have a few questions left. What do you believe are the non-negotiable actions as an entrepreneur to help be successful in your business?
Well, I think you have to sell continuously to be successful as an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
And I think you need to realize that entrepreneurship is not a solo enterprise. You need to surround yourself with really amazing people that are doing things that you don't know how to do. So that could be in your networking groups, in your communities, that could be in the masterminds that you join, definitely with a coach that you should work with. So I believe that you have to invest in your business and in yourself in order to achieve the level of success that you want to reach. If you're not willing to invest in your own personal and professional development, there's a very good chance that nobody else will invest in you. They won't buy your products, they won't buy your service. So you have to be willing to invest.
So I love that. That makes a lot of sense. And tell us, what's like the next end game you're currently working on? Like, what's your next mountain peak you're shooting for that you're like, oh, this would be so amazing when this happens with my business, or when this happens with helping this many clients? Curious about that.
Really my focus right now is on improving my own leadership skills. As somebody who has a team, a really phenomenal team, I have 3 amazing people that work in my business every day, and I feel like I'm lacking when it comes to my leadership skills. It doesn't come natural to me. So I have invested quite a bit of time and money in upping my leadership skills so that I can be a better leader, so that the business can continue to prosper, that my clients will still be delivered at a very high level services and service, frankly, from me and from my team.
Oh, I love that. Improving leadership skills. And the last 2 questions are, how can we best contact you? Anything you want to give away to the audience? Love to hear about that.
Absolutely. I would love to wrap a gift around a way to be in touch with me if I can for your audience.
Of
I have
course.
an ebook. Okay, it's called Closing the Sale. It talks through the last 3 steps of a sales conversation, and that close language gives you some suggestions, build your confidence there. So my gift to get that would just be to go to yoursalesmaven.com/rapid. So this is for your audience.
Awesome.
And yeah,
Closing the Sale ebook. Yes, we'll make sure to link that in the comments. And for those listening, once again, that's yoursalesmaven.com/rapid. And Nikki, this has been incredible. This has been amazing. I've just been taking notes myself with all these amazing sales advice. You definitely know what you're talking about. What's the one takeaway you want someone to have from listening to this interview today?
oh, the one takeaway is I believe truly that anybody can raise their sales game. Anybody can be good at sales. It's just learning the structure and the strategy, and you can achieve where you want to go in your business and in life by learning selling skills.
I love it. All right, everyone, make sure to check out Nikki online, yoursalesmaven.com, and we'll see you all next time for our next episode of Rapid Results. Take care, everyone.